Hey y'all, Tyler here with Cast Album Chat with Tyler, and I wanted to thank you for watching my very first episode. So I'm just here to ramble on a little bit about cast recordings. I am an actor, a singer, and I have been paid in a theatrical setting to dance, so I'm gonna say I'm a dancer as well. I have a mean box step. So cast recordings are probably one of the only things on the planet Earth on which I have any kind of knowledge, firm knowledge whatsoever. So I'm just gonna be here talking every week about a different show, a different type of recording, different performers. So if you have any ideas, drop in the comments here and let me know if you want to hear something about a specific show, composer, singer, whatever you need. So this year was very long for a lot of us, especially for performers, and I think that I have realized the importance of cast albums in my life. I'm a huge collector, big fan, and I've realized since we haven't had live theater for the better part of a year, that this is the next best thing that we have. We have recordings, we have video recordings. Nothing is quite the same as an actual theatrical performance, but a cast recording might get you pretty close. So imagine me moved to a small town in East Texas, and the only thing that was around was a shopping mall, which even in its best of days was nothing to write home about. So I went to the local record store, walking, mind you, probably about a mile back then, which was a lot for me because I'm not very athletic. And I happened upon this beauty right here. EVITA in Spanish. At this point, I already had the Broadway album, the London album, the concept album, and I think I already had the movie as well. So I knew the score very, very well. But I didn't know that these shows had been translated into other languages, that they had been performed in other countries and other cities. And so I was really fascinated by this little sucker right here. And this is the one that started it all for me. It's really quite in bad shape. At one point, I think one of the discs had a Skittle, you can kind of see it right there, a Skittle melted onto it. So I have been very lucky to have picked up a newer copy of this, and it plays perfectly. And then I'm about to show you how much of a complete nerd I am with this stuff. Watch this. So this is the original vinyl that was released in Spain in 1980. And this is actually not the Evita that sang in the show, Paloma San Basilio, but this is her alternate, Mia Patterson, who is on the cover because Paloma San Basilio, the original singer, said that Mia actually looked more like the real Evita, so she decided that she would be on the cover. Nice lady, huh? Anyway, so this is the original LP, 1980. It was recorded, I think, in November of 1980, and the show actually premiered in December of 1980 at the Teatro Monumental in Madrid. This lovely lady right here is Paloma San Basilio, and then we have the rest of the principals here. Pachi Andion, who sadly passed away a few months ago from a car accident, Julio Catania, Tony Landa, and Montserrat Vega. This recording is really what started it all for me. I was blown away by the voices on it. I was blown away by the orchestrations, which were done by Juan Jose Garcia Cafi, an Argentinian actually. So he reorchestrated the show to give it more of an Argentinian flair, and it really sounds wonderful. They have the accordions, bandeon, the guitars, it all sounds wonderful. Only downfall is that there were probably, I think I read, about 70 musicians on this recording itself. And what they did every night at the Teatro Monumental is they had a pre-recorded version of the orchestral tracks that the cast would sing along with every night. So the cast was singing live, I believe, but the orchestra was not really there because they could not pay all of these musicians every night. And additionally, some of the specialty instruments, some of those musicians came from Argentina, so they were not able to be in Madrid at the time of these performances. Why is this so important to me? I was studying Spanish around this time, and I really thought it was fascinating how you could take lyrics, the wonderful original lyrics by Tim Rice, translate them to make them mean basically the same thing, but give it a local flair to where it makes sense to the people of Spain, the people of Madrid, and how it all fits with the meter of the music, which is probably one of the most difficult things to do when you're translating a piece. So that kind of started my love of foreign language cast recordings, of foreign languages, and really kind of the puzzle of how do you present a show that's written in one language in a different language, and are you successful or are you not successful? Yeah, I said that I'm going to show you my level of nerdiness, and here it is. This is, like I said, the original LP vinyl album of the show. And what happened is that each of these characters at least has one song to themselves. And so what did they do to publicize the show? They came out with singles, which are upside down. They came up with singles of these different numbers from the characters. So we have the single from Paloma San Basilio singing Don't Cry For Me Argentina, No Llores Por Mi Argentina. We also have Pachi Andion singing Oh What a Circus, O Que Gran Circo. And Montserrat Vega singing Another Suitcase in Another Hall. I did find these when I was living in Madrid, and I just think they are so freaking cool. If you've never seen, for all you youngsters out there, these are the downloads of the day. I was gonna say the CD singles of the day, but I don't think you even know what a CD is, so there you go. So yeah, you got probably a song on each side. Got the information, cast information here. Really cool concept. I got the American release whenever I was younger. This is the one that was released in the United States. And there was another version that was on CD in the fat box back in, probably in the 80s, I would assume. 80s, 93. So this was released in 93. I'm a bit of a weirdo when it comes to collecting albums because sometimes, not in this release actually, but sometimes they will have different pictures of the production. This just kind of gives you song list right there. But sometimes you get pictures, liner notes that kind of tell you what the show was like. And I think that's one of the most interesting things about cast recordings. They can do a lot of different things. This one specifically, I think that the goal was to give you an idea of what the show was going to be like in the theater. So you're hearing the same orchestra and orchestrations you hear in the theater, the exact same cast. This was a complete recording, so this is basically, if you went to the Teatro Monumental in 1980, you heard this piece from beginning to end, and it probably sounded very, very familiar to what is on this recording. There are other recordings that are doctored, you know, like a highlights recording where they'll cut off the end of a song, or a transition, or they'll shorten a number just to make it more album friendly in a way. And then there are some weird ones that you will hear me talk about in these videos that are technically cast recordings because they use the cast from a certain production, but it has nothing to do with the actual production itself. The way that they sing the songs, the style, the orchestrations, nothing is like what you have seen on stage. So, you know, the cast recordings have a very, very different goals, and it depends, I think, on the producer. I think talking about the producer is something that I'm gonna put a lot of blame on them sometimes. Being a singer myself, I don't like to talk trash about any performers, and we're all trying our hardest, whether it was during the pandemic or in general in show business, or these people that were dealing with different technology than what we had nowadays. You know, they couldn't be auto-tuned, and so I don't like to fault performers, be they singers, conductors, music directors, musicians. I do sometimes lay the blame at the feet of the producer because sometimes they have the end say, and whether that's producer of the recording itself or the producer of the production, I couldn't tell you. And if I do ever fault anyone, I hope that I can give you a reason for doing that. So talking about this recording specifically, the reason that I fell in love with this type of recording is because this one is badass. It's really, really, really good. Starting from the singers, Paloma San Basilio is, You know, for my mother-in-law who's Spanish, she is a pop singer from, not my mother-in-law, Paloma San Basilio, is a pop singer that has really been around for everyone's whole lifetime. Not only has she done pop, she really has stuck with musical theater. She's performed Evita, Victor Victoria, My Fair Lady, Man of La Mancha. So she really has dedicated herself to taking on these really monster roles and doing it really well. She is sometimes compared to the Mexican Evita, which I will talk about in another video, Rocío Banquels. And they have very, very different types of voices. But the thing I like about Paloma is that she is sometimes very steely and hard, just the way that we think Evita should be most of the time, but she has those moments of weakness and that kind of inner little girl comes out every once in a while, which is really cool. Pachi Andion, who plays Che, also a pop singer. I am not entirely sure that he did a lot of theater after this, but he's wonderful. He has a really, really cool gravelly voice that you're not going to hear from Mandy Patinkin or David Essex. It's sung in a way that you have never heard it sung before, and is actually a pretty darn good actor, so good for him. Julio Catania, who plays Perón, is an operatic bass. And you can tell from the moment he starts singing, this is going to be a very, very different experience than what you've heard before. Also a very, very good actor, but he sings the snot out of this thing. And it's usually a role that people don't think about very much. It's not the showiest role in the show. He has one tiny little solo song, but he makes the most of it. And he might be one of my favorites just because he sticks out so much vocally. He just has a lot of heft to him. Tony Landa, who sings Magaldi, is wonderful. He's smarmy, but he still has a good voice, which might actually, I don't know, it might work against his character a little bit. There are lines about how he's maybe not going to be remembered for his voice, but I'd buy his album. He's pretty good. And Montserrat Vega is another singer that just kind of hits the nail on the head with it. You know, she's not a voice you're going to listen to and say, well, I've never heard anybody sing like this before. It's a very, very steady performance on her one song, but she's really, really fantastic. The whole cast altogether, the ensemble sounds amazing. You get a lot more legit voices. At this point, musical theater was still not the cultural phenomenon that it is today in Spain, which now it's really blown up and it's all over the place. But back in the day, you know, there were not as many productions popping up. This one came about 5 years after the success of Jesus Christ Superstar there. And even before South Pacific, there was not a lot of stuff popping up outside of maybe opera companies, zarzuela companies, which is like the Spanish form of opera. And so this is kind of a novel approach. And some of the voices that you hear on this recording are a bit heavier than some of the ones you might hear on the London concept or Broadway recording, if you're used to those, or the London revival, the Broadway revival. Very different experience. And like I said before, this orchestra is insanely good, and you can tell that there are a ton of players in that pit, well, in the pit, in the studio where they later on played it through the speakers. I've never heard Evita played in this way. It's reorchestrated not in a violently revisionist way. You still get those kind of Hershey K. You have the Hershey K bass in there, but you get a lot of guitar, a lot of bandeon, which is like an accordion, and just the rhythms, the syncopations, the way that it's played is so authentic because the music director is from Argentina, and so he really knows what he's doing. I think one of the only things, being a language enthusiast, I think one of the only things that really bothers me about this recording is that it's sung with a Castilian accent, which in Spanish is called castellano. Even though I guess people from Argentina also say that they speak castellano, which they do, but it's very, very different. You have something that's called the distinction between ceseo and ceceo. And if you've heard somebody from Spain talk about Barcelona, maybe you've heard the sound. This is not something that they do in Argentina. Within Argentina, there are also different types of accents depending on where you are. It's a very big country. But specifically in Junín and Buenos Aires, I certainly know that they do not speak with the distinction between ceseo and ceseo. They only speak in what's called ceseo, so if you have a soft C or an S or a Z, it all sounds like S. And that's something that really bothers me, and I'll talk about on some other recordings when we get to characters that are supposed to be singing in Spanish. Even, you know, in the Broadway recording, Patti LuPone's singing in English, but you understand that she is singing in Spanish to everyone else that speaks Spanish and understands Spanish, because Eva Perón spoke Spanish. And so I think I'll talk about this later in a different video, maybe a video about translations or accents, that it is a bit jarring to hear Spanish actors speaking and singing in their native accent when they really should be imitating maybe another one. It's kind of like, let me think of a good example here. If you're doing, well, say it's a British company that's doing Promises, Promises, takes place in New York. If people are singing with a British accent, yeah, they're speaking the same language, but it just doesn't ring true when you have somebody with a British accent singing something from Promises, Promises. So that's probably the only thing that really irks me from this. At the end of the day, what I have to say is I am truly grateful for this beat up little CD right here, because it started me on a journey of collecting hundreds of cast recordings in English, in Spanish, in French, German, Swedish, Danish, Icelandic, you name it, I probably got it. It's really gotten me through this year. It was a hard year for everyone. I'm a bit sad, found kind of an alternative thing to do. Theater was taken away from all of us, so whether you made your life performing in theater, if you made your living doing that, or if you just went to the theater all the time because it was something that you loved so much, that was kind of taken away from us. But we're very lucky to have these records. I don't mean record as an LP vinyl, but this kind of record of a certain moment in time. I was not on this planet in 1980. I didn't get to go to Madrid for the first time until 2007, so I missed it by a few decades. But I get an idea of what it was like. And so this is my personal little time machine right here. And I hope that every week that I can take you on a journey back in time to a different place, a different time. And even if you're still stuck in your living room or in your bedroom or in your office, whatever it happens to be, we can travel together and talk about some cast recordings in foreign languages. So I want to thank you all for watching this video and listening to me ramble for I don't know how long it is. And don't forget to subscribe down below so that you can see a new video every time one comes out. If you have any ideas of what you want to hear me talk about, be it a musical, a composer, a language, a style, whatever it happens to be, just let me know down below and I'll make a new video. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you later. Bye.